Hello and welcome. You're watching To The Point. Exactly 1 month after the surprise announcement of demonetization on the 8th of November, how effective can it be in eliminating black money and counterfeit currency? Whatever the gain, will it justify the all too evident pain? How precisely can we estimate what is the hit on the economy? And is the Prime Minister's vision of a cashless society practical and feasible? And finally, what impact will demonetization have on GST? Those are the questions I shall discuss today with the Finance Minister of Bengal and Chairman of the Empowered Committee of State Finance Ministers on GST, Amit Mitra. Dr. Mitra, let's start with an evaluation of what demonetization can achieve. First, it was intended to eliminate black money, but today there are increasing numbers of reports that of the 15.5 lakh that have been demonetized, 90 or even 95% could return by the 30th of December. In fact, the Revenue Secretary has said we can expect the full amount to come back. If that happens, what would it mean?
I think this is perhaps the biggest scam that is about to happen if these figures are right. Because what it seems to me is, if all of the money comes back, either there was not enough black money to justify with a hammer on the nation, which no democratic country in the world has done. And I can tell you, Zaire has done, Myanmar has done, Ghana has done, Nigeria has done, Soviet Union has done, but not a democratic market economy. So you come back with a hammer, and what do you get? At least for cash black money, you get nothing. That means that may have two serious implications. One, it could be that the government was purely ignorant because it does not consult anybody. It kept it within a coterie, which is the nature, unfortunately, of this government. Or they have in effect facilitated some people from converting black into white effectively, ending up with no Reserve Bank surpluses.
So
this is a dangerous situation. It hasn't happened anywhere in the world before, and we need to look at it very deeply. What is the hidden agenda if this is the case?
So what you're saying, Dr. Mitra, is that if all the money comes back as the Revenue Secretary has told us to expect, it means either there was no black money or it's been effectively laundered. One or the other it has to be.
Yes.
Now, secondly, as you know, Dr. Mitra...
And in both cases...
Yes, go ahead.
The government will have to be held responsible.
In other words, in both cases, the blame lies flatly with the government.
And they'll have to explain to the people.
Yes. Now, secondly, demonetization was also intended to tackle counterfeit currency. But in an affidavit that the government submitted to the Supreme Court, the government has said that at any one point of time, the quantity of fake notes circulating in the economy is just 400 crore, and that's only 0.028% of all currency in circulation. So in this instance, has the government, by its own admission, raised serious questions about tackling such a small sum by demonetizing 86% of all currency?
I mean, just imagine for Mr. Thapar, for 400 crores of supposed fake money, according to the government itself, you kill or demonetize over 14.5 lakh, maybe 15 lakh crores. I mean, what kind of policy is this? Another serious question, we have recently found some fake money in the new fake money, I am told, according to reports. What does this mean? This is horrendous. This is truly horrendous.
So, in the instance of counterfeit money, are you suggesting that in fact the government has used the monetary equivalent of a nuclear bomb to kill a mosquito?
Absolutely. I mean, the question is, on one hand, the black money either gets laundered or isn't quite there because it is in the form of assets elsewhere, to which we can come later. On the other hand, if that black money in fact was there, it has been successfully laundered by a government that is incompetent or intentionally compliant. The people of the country will have to decide.
Now, Dr. Mitra, whether what's achieved is worth the pain depends entirely on how big that pain is. So let me ask you, what do you believe will be the hit to India's GDP as a result of demonetization? Dr. Manmohan Singh has said it will be 2%, and he calls that an underestimate. Some 11 agencies say it will be under 1%. Ambit says it could be as high as 3.5%. As Finance Minister of Bengal, what's your assessment of the hit on GDP?
Well, I've got a best case scenario with quarter 1, quarter 2, quarter 3, where I have been very careful, and quarter 4. You know what is the best case scenario? The best case scenario is close to what Dr. Manmohan Singh has said. It is 7.5% was the rate of growth of 15-16. We will perhaps fall to 5.5%. And you know what that means? 3 lakh crores of GDP would be lost. Now I come to the second option, but economists always look at alternatives. Possible case scenario. And that again I have done a detailed estimate, and I find the growth rate may fall on the aggregate for this year to 4.3%. Will arrive at 4.3%, which means it will fall by 3.2%. So either 2% best case scenario or 3.2% as the possibility, which would mean a loss of 4.7 lakh crores of GDP extinguished. So you have a choice. You want to kill 3 lakh crores GDP, or you kill 4.7 lakh GDP. You take your pick. This is the biggest scandal of the world in terms of a growing economy, which has simply been extinguished in terms of its growth momentum.
So what you're saying, Dr. Mitra, is that we are paying a disproportionate cost for the gain, and the gain, secondly, may be very marginal, if there is any gain at all. The cost could be as large as 4.7 lakh crore in your worst case scenario, and there may be no gain at all if all the money comes back as the Revenue Secretary has suggested it may.
Absolutely. I mean, this scenario, this is why economists across the world, in India and elsewhere, everybody, without any exception in terms of known economists, 2 Nobel laureates among them, are today shocked. This happened in very major dictatorial nations of the world, as I indicated to you. Soviet Union, Zaire, Myanmar, Ghana, Nigeria. Where is the example of over 86% being withdrawn?
Okay.
In terms of circulating currency in a democracy, in a market economy.
Let me then ask you this. Is this why the Prime Minister seems to be changing the justification for demonetization? In his first announcement on the 8th of November, he mentioned black money 18 times, he mentioned counterfeit 5 times, but he didn't mention digital or cashless at all. But by the end of November, he was using the phrase digital or cashless 3 times more often than black money, and he'd stopped talking about counterfeit altogether. So is the Prime Minister trying to change the justification for demonetization? And if the answer is yes, is it because of the reasons and explanation you've just given?
I think what is fascinating to me is very soon the Prime Minister obviously realized that the whole path that he had taken is leading to the garden. It's not leading anywhere. Quietly changing the narrative every few days. I'll give you an example. I have done an estimate on how many times has the government said different things Do you know how much it works out to? 50 times, 50. On November 14th, announcements, November 8th, 14 announcements. November 13th, 11 announcements. November 17th, 7 new announcements. November 23rd, 8 new announcements. And November 24th, 10 new announcements. Total of 50 announcements. Is this a government? Changes its minds? Contradiction between what the Prime Minister said and what the Department of Economic Affairs Secretary says. In the middle of this quagmire. So my question to you is, what is this going on? Yes, the narrative is being shifted from one of black money, as you so correctly said, away from that because it's not happening, away from any kind of other processes. Now you go to a digital economy, cashless economy. Doesn't he know that practically 86% of the people have no means to go to cashless economy? Let me give you a figure that will shock you. This is from the Reserve Bank of India's data, I am saying. 92% of villages in India are unbanked. 92%. Forget the digital economy. Unbanked. So my submission to you is, where is this pie in the sky? Who is he doing it for? What is the hidden motive? I have no idea. Or is it simple ignorance that he doesn't know that you can't graduate from having no banks of 92% villages of India, and you jump to a digital economy with everybody using cell phones of intelligent kind. Only 17% people in India have intelligent phones, most of whom are not adept at using it.
Can I then interrupt and put this to you?
Effect.
Can I then interrupt and put this to you? Are you saying that the Prime Minister's vision of making India a cashless economy is neither practical nor feasible, because, as the Business Standard has revealed, 300 million Indians don't have bank accounts, as the Business Standard says 4 out of 5 villages don't have banks, and as Sitaram Yechuri said in Parliament, less than 3% of countrymen have debit or credit cards? So are you saying this vision of a cashless economy is impractical and not feasible?
See, everybody would like to see partially a cashless economy, not the Prime Minister, but anybody. But let me give you some telling figures. 21,000 unorganized mandis in the country. Does he know that? Is he living in the real world? 21,000 unorganized mandis, who obviously use cash and today are starved. 2, MSME, micro small industries. 383 lakh unorganized unit. Let me repeat, 383 lakh unorganized units. Obviously they are not switching overnight to e-based cashless economy. White goods have slumped 70%, which means even those of us who buy white goods, as refrigerators, televisions, slump shows that there was a huge cash engagement in that.
Then what about the speech that the Prime Minister made very recently, where he said that the time had come for people to regard their mobile phones as their local bank branches? In the context of your criticism of the vision to make India a cashless economy, because you say it's impractical, it simply can't be done in the present circumstances, how do you view that speech that people should consider mobile phones like local bank branches?
I think what is interesting to me is this is, as an objective of any economy, is obviously good. You see, these are all pious intentions. Look at the American economy. What proportion of that is cash? A big part of it is cash, though they have completely plastic process. Any major economy has a component of cash. In our case, as I indicated to you, small and medium businesses, unorganized sector, farmers' mandis, this is what India is about in a very big proportion. Now therefore, to move them into a cashless economy is a major task. Where is the package for that? Is it by destabilizing the economy and demonetizing that you whip them into doing this? This is a dictatorial streak of a government that just has lost its connection with the ground level of India.
Dr. Mitra,
as I've said to you, the mandis, the unorganized sector, the small and medium enterprises.
Let me explore in some depth at this point your claim that in the worst case scenario, the hit on the economy can be as much as 4.7 lakh crore. Your best case was a hit, I believe, of something like 3 lakh crore. The worst case was 4.7 lakh crore. That second worst case figure will actually shake a lot of people. So I want to explore that with you. And let me put it like this. When 86% of all currency is removed in one fell swoop, what is the impact in terms of an economy where 90% of all transactions are in cash, and in terms of the fact where 80% of workers are paid in cash? What is the impact for the human beings involved? Can you give me some sense of that?
Let me give you two examples. One is from Maharashtra. I want your viewers to understand what it does to the economy. You take the case of power looms. 70% of power looms are closed, and workers are moving out to Bihar, UP and Telangana. Now take the value chain. Cotton to be sold to spinners who make thread. They don't have the money to do so, to buy. They are supposed to give that spun product to the power looms. They don't have the chain, in the value chain, the money to do that. Power looms have to sell to people. They don't have the money to deal with that. And then, of course, let me submit to you, move to FMCG, fast-moving consumer goods. You'd be interested to know that as far as fast-moving consumer goods are concerned, approximately over 92% of fast-moving consumer goods are delivered by Modi ke dukaan of kirana stores. I find 1% of them, if you at the best case scenario have non-monetary process where they may have some kind of electronic, 99% do not. Now you may say, what about wholesale? You will be interested to know 95% of wholesale fast-moving consumer goods in India happens with cash.
Okay.
Does the Honorable Prime Minister and his government know that?
You've given me...
So you can get from this only fast-moving consumer goods. What is the situation?
You've given me a very good broad picture of the situation facing the Indian economy as a whole. Let me ask you to give me a more focused picture about Bengal, your own state, your finance minister of Bengal. First, what is the impact on the informal sector in Bengal? Nationwide, the informal sector is some 45% of GDP, it's 80% of employment, it gets its finances from non-banking financial institutions, including money lenders and hundis. All three of those are badly hit, they're starved of cash. So what's the impact on the informal sector in Bengal, your own state?
I must confess to you that the informal sector in Bengal is even larger than many states. The agricultural sector in Bengal is much larger than many states. Now what is pathetic today is the informal sector has collapsed. The unorganized sector has collapsed. Even the organized sector, a jute mill closed yesterday because they could not pay cash. Tea garden workers, they receive pay on cash on 7 or 15 days. They are crying today, and we have asked for Reserve Bank cash. We said we'll give it to the district magistrate, who will then be able to organize distribution of cash to the tea garden workers. But it hasn't agreed. I'll give you an example of leather. 70% of gloves and bags of India export is from West Bengal. You would want to know that right through the value chain, from hides person who then gives it for to the next level, to the next level, to the next level, today are crying. They are saying 70 to 80% work has come to a complete standstill. And this is not even informal, that is semi-formal.
Now,
so jute mills, gardens, whichever direction you see, do you know that we will lose easily 5 to 6,000 crores in taxes, if not more. I'm doing a very conservative estimate.
So you're saying,
because of the fact that there is no GDP generation as it would have been from this whole value chain.
This is so important. I'm interrupting. You're saying that the hit to the state's revenues, Bengal state's revenues, will be 5 to 6,000 crore.
I'm not only saying that. Telangana, you take Bengal, I take you Telangana. Telangana did an estimate 5-6 days ago, and they said they're going to lose 20% of their revenue, equal to 10,000 crores. Mine may go up to that level, I don't know, but they have done an estimate.
What about,
so you're looking at states who are beating their breasts, saying, what are we going to do with...
Have you done a similar estimate for your own state, Dr. Mitra? Your finance minister, do you have an overall picture of what the hit to Bengal revenues will be?
Yes. Yes, in fact, Honorable Chief Minister Mamata Banerjee has said it on the floor of the Parliament, for the floor of the Assembly, just a few days ago, when she opened the debate. The number she gave as a minimum estimate, developed by the Finance Department, is anything above 5,000, between 5 and 6,000 crores. I am, in fact, in the last 3 days' experience, upping it further to maybe 7,000 crores. Which is a huge quantum. Where am I going to get that money from? To run social programs, to run schools, to run the processes of social infrastructure? I really don't know.
Now, you've explained in some considerable graphic detail the hit on the informal sector, the hit on the organized sector, and the hit on your state, Bengal's revenues. Let me come to the other important sector of the economy, which is agriculture. The Business Standard reported on the 3rd that Rabi sowing is 8.5% higher than last year, and it's only 0.27% less than the 5-year average, which is what's considered the norm. And that same point was repeated on television by the Economic Affairs Secretary Shaktikant Das. So would you accept that whereas, as you pointed out, manufacturing, the informal and unorganized sector will suffer badly, agriculture, on the other hand, may not suffer at all as a result of demonetization? Would you accept that?
I'm sorry, I'm unable to agree with that. I'll give you a graphic example. This is the time that in Bengal we sow potatoes, aloo. Do you know that we do not have the seeds for the aloo, which comes from Punjab, and some of it we grow ourselves? That cash is not available. So the aloo crop is going to fail because of lack of cash. Then comes the Rabi crop. Rabi crop needs fertilizer, it needs insecticides, other ingredients. Where is the cash for that? Because the primary source of lending in rural India and in Bengal is the cooperative banks. And cooperative banks have no money. There are farmers, as you know, 87 people have died. In our state, farmers are just in a brink of collapse because the cooperative banks from which they take lending don't have the money. They don't have the cash.
In which case, let me ask you this. If both the informal, unorganized sector and Bengal's agriculture are suffering, and you've given us graphic details of how you believe they're suffering and suffering badly, what then happens to casual labor employed both by the informal sector and agriculture? And remember, nationwide casual labor, casual daily wage labor, is probably 60% of all jobs. And in Bengal, it may be higher because, as you said, you have a much bigger share of the unorganized sector. So what is happening to casual daily wage labor in Bengal?
They are in total misery, and the Honorable Prime Minister has to be held responsible for this totally pathetic action which has no parallel in modern economic history, in any democracy or any market economy. You will be also interested to know that from Gujarat, the diamond people who were workers who have gone from West Bengal, 70% of them have come back. It's not Bengal only. And in the case of the power looms, I gave you example of Maharashtra, 70% of closed and workers have moved back to Bihar, UP and Telangana. So it's Bengal's workers moving, it is Maharashtra's workers moving, it is Telangana's workers moving, absolutely marooned because they don't know when this value chain will be repaired and when they will be able to come back.
But
can you put yourself in the shoes of one of them taking that train?
Absolutely.
And going back.
That's what I want to ask you. Put yourself in the shoes of daily casual workers in Bengal, people who you know best of all. Are they now facing a situation where they are losing their jobs and therefore losing their daily income? What is the sort of plight they face? Can you explain that to me from Bengal's perspective? The plight of casual daily wage labor in Bengal, who are perhaps, as you said, amongst the worst hit.
Today, they are renting a place. Now the owner of the whatever little room they have is asking them to move out because they are not able to pay rent. They have to eat. Where is the cash for that, for the family? The women are large entrepreneurs in our state. The women have lost their complete unorganized sector income, which adds to the family's income. So the question is, who is responsible for these poor people who are good entrepreneurs? They make out a living. They really are the backbone of our economy, not of Bengal only, but of the country. Who has the authority to hit them in this manner with no gain, only acute, unbearable pain?
In the circumstances of what we are discussing, how do you respond as Finance Minister of Bengal to the fact that the RBI governor consciously, deliberately did not drop the exchange rate? People expected he would cut it by 0.25%, but he didn't. Do you agree that that was the right thing to do because of fear that the Fed rate could increase because of oil prices increasing? Or do you believe that in the present circumstances, where the economy is slowing down, it will actually exacerbate the situation? Which of the two?
My sense is the Honorable Governor of the Reserve Bank has obviously lost his way. He was never heard for 20 days. We don't even know what his views are. He is known to be a neo-monetarist. But today he is not a Keynesian or a monetarist. A Keynesian would say, lower the interest rate so that you stimulate investment. And let me point one thing out to you, Mr. Thapa. In the second quarter of this year, though we grew by 7.1%, people do not know that what we use as a proxy for investment, capital formation, fell by negative 5.6%. It fell. So in other words, we were already tracked in a rather dangerous zone when suddenly this destabilization came. So I would like to ask the Reserve Bank Governor, neo-monetarist, are you a Keynesian or you're a silent observer of something on which you have no control and no participation of a superior nature? I don't know the answer to that, though I respect him. I know him, but I don't know. He must be a lost man today.
You actually said he's lost his way. You mean it? That's a strong criticism.
What I'm saying is, I don't know whether he's lost his way, but I see that he's not giving us away. Either you're a Keynesian inclined economist who says that lower interest rate, which will then stimulate investment, which will in turn bring the growth rate up. Either you say that and do it in an aggressive manner, or you sit back and say, I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't know. I would love to hear an explanation from the intellectually sophisticated chairman of the Reserve Bank. Let him come out in public. This is a democracy. We used to hear from other chairmen, sometimes more, sometimes less, but they came out and explained to the people what this is about. I'm looking for that explanation to educate myself.
You're also saying that the governor's silence is unacceptable.
I absolutely believe that this is the kind of time when a governor of the central bank of a country comes out, explains to the people, gives a point of view. Whether I agree with him or not is a different matter, but I want to understand what is the mechanics of this, what is the engineering of this, where are we going? But I'm helpless. I don't know. This is unfortunately a part of this whole the authoritarian approach that has happened in the country, where nobody speaks. And the people who speak are people who didn't even know that demonetization is going to happen.
Dr. Mitra, in that answer, there's a hint that perhaps not everyone knew about demonetization, not everyone was in the picture. Spell out what you're hinting at, because many in the audience would have caught that hint but not fully understood what you're suggesting. Spell it out for me.
Well, I must say, I must confess, that a cabinet minister at the center said to me, they were taken into a room and they thought that the Prime Minister will come and speak to them, and just like anybody else, they saw the Prime Minister make the announcement on a screen. That is pathetic.
Forgive me, I'm interrupting.
The entire cabinet of India.
I'm interrupting so you can clarify. You're saying that a cabinet minister told you that he found out about demonetization when he heard the Prime Minister announce it on screen. In other words, he as a cabinet minister had not been told in advance.
Precisely. Precisely so. I was told this in Delhi when I had gone for the GST meeting. I happened to meet a cabinet minister who said specifically what you repeated, and I could not believe it, that they were just like any of us, herded into a room, and then they hear the Prime Minister speak like you did or I did.
This is a full-rank cabinet minister?
Travesty.
Was this a full-rank cabinet minister or a minister of state?
Yes. Full-rank cabinet minister. Full-rank cabinet minister.
And an important one or a small portfolio holder?
No, an important one who know, and I believe that this is something that he will not have lied to me at all.
You know,
I cannot tell you what else he told me, because that would be bombshell.
What else did he tell you?
No, basically the whole tenor of the discussion, conversation was that there is no sharing of information. There is no democratic process within the cabinet, he said. It is simply, bahut acha, clap, 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 it's over. They should be able to say, now that the event is over of demonetization, they should be able to say, I cannot go to my constituency because people are going to accost me. So give me an explanation. Let us discuss. Let us see how we can contain this or contain that.
Okay.
I was hoping that is the nature of the cabinet in Delhi,
and you're saying to me,
process of democracy.
And you're saying to me all of this was conveyed to you in confidence by a senior, top-ranking, full-fledged cabinet minister?
Precisely so. I'm sorry to say, precisely so.
All right, Dr. Mitra, let's take a break at that point. When we come back, I want to turn to you about the impact demonetization could have on GST. We'll be back in a moment's time for the second part of this interview with the Finance Minister of West Bengal. See you in a moment's time. Welcome back. You're watching To The Point, and I'm interviewing the Finance Minister of Bengal and Chairman of the Empowered Group of State Finance Ministers on GST, Amit Mitra. Dr. Mitra, let's come to GST. Why did you last week say that after demonetization it would be unwise and even risky to go ahead with GST, and therefore the GST Council should consider a delay in the rollout of GST?
Well, let me submit to you that GST Council itself, in its wisdom, chaired by the Union Finance Minister, and I was there as Empowered Committee Chairman, all the other, my senior colleagues were there, we decided that the compensation to the states would be done from a special fund, not the consolidated fund of Government of India, but a special fund. In that fund, there was a consensus that probably 55,000 crores is what would be needed to compensate the loss of revenue of states. Now there will be some, now furthermore it was also decided that 14% growth, whichever state managed, they will not get any compensation. Those which would be below 14% would get a compensation.
But why does all
model.
this, why does all this lead you to the conclusion GST should be delayed?
Yes.
Why does this lead you to the conclusion GST should be delayed?
No, let me explain. So therefore, now I'm linking it to the demonetization issue. Now with demonetization, what is going to happen is that the own taxes of states collected will sharply decline, as you can well imagine, due to our discussion a few minutes ago. That would mean the compensation to the states, many more states who could have made more than 14% growth of revenue are going to fall below the 14%, which means by constitutional amendment they will have to be compensated. So in place of 55,000 crores, it is possible that the country will need a 1 lakh crore fund. Now look at the fund. What does the fund consist of? Fund consists of luxury cars. Will their buying fall? They are talking about aerated drinks, which is a part of the cess, which will go into compensation. That is going to fall. Tobacco itself, which is another cess, that is expected to fall. Now, while the compensation sources are falling from cesses, your need for compensation is steeply rising. And do you want a destabilization of the economy by another hit called GST, which we had agreed we will take, where we just do not know what will happen to our revenues?
Can I put this to you?
What will the states do, tell me, if their revenues decline much more sharply than expected?
Yes. I understand your concern. You're saying that the centre is committed to compensate in full for 5 years the states on the assumption that their revenue will grow by 14% a year. And you're saying that after demonetization, the state's capacity, i.e. the centre's capacity to give full compensation will shrink, or they will have to raise much more money to do so. Instead of just 50,000, they may have to raise a lakh. But the point is this, the finance minister is very confident he can meet that promise. If he is confident he can meet the promise, why are you worried on his behalf?
I am worried because, first of all, as we had discussed earlier, the Reserve Bank, if it had managed to save something from demonetization and transfer it to the treasury of the centre as a dividend, there could have been a cushion for him. Now that cushion is obviously closing in, it will not be there. Secondly, in the middle of the misery of the people and the environment we've discussed, one more thing will happen. Every state will have to abolish their directorates of different taxes. So there will be no VAT, there will be no entry tax, there will be no entertainment tax. The whole fiscal architecture will have to change, which is a huge challenge in the form of destabilization. In the same way, in the centre, they will not have excise duty to rely on. But don't forget, they will still have income tax. They will still have export, both of which are expected to get hit by the demonetization. So the total aggregate picture, Mr. Thapar, is that can we not move GST a little bit on so that when the economy stabilizes, people come back to some normal living conditions. You bring another destabilization, which is good for the country.
Can I interrupt?
We support it. Let it be calibrated.
Can I interrupt with a very quick question, and I'll ask you for a short answer because we're desperately short of time. Your fear about revenues falling hinges on GDP collapsing to the extent you said in part one. But suppose it doesn't. After all, 11 out of 12 agencies have said that the hit on GDP will be less than 1%. 11 out of 12 agencies. Secondly, aren't you also overlooking the fact that government revenues will grow when tax and penalty of up to 50% is paid on the money people declare as their black money? Both of those together could suggest that your fears are unjustified and exaggerated.
What is the amount that the government has got on which they are going to charge taxes, I want to know. That will depend on that estimate. All I am saying is GST is a good thing. Mamata Banerjee put it into a manifesto in 2009.
Okay.
We all uniformly supported it. Compensation was guaranteed. And yet we have come to the point where one hit that was not expected, never expected, of a bigger magnum size, a tsunami, hit the economy. We need to calibrate this so that GST is successful. Do you want a GST that fails? All of us would be unhappy.
One last
the whole
question.
world would be unhappy. The biggest fiscal reform in the world.
One last question, Dr. Mitra. As Arun Jaitley has pointed out, you can only delay GST up till the 16th of September. Because after that, if there's no GST, there'll be no other tax either. And that would cripple India because there'd be no revenue full stop for anyone, centre and the states. What purpose do you really achieve by delaying by just 5 months? Because that's the maximum delay that's permissible.
It is very important for us to understand where we are in 4 to 5 months from now. Because GST is not the end of our life. It is the beginning of life. It's the beginning of a new fiscal architecture.
Okay.
So we need to be careful and strategic that within 4 5 months where we are, we analyze, we estimate. If we are comfortable, push GST through. I have no problem.
All right, Dr.
But
Mitra.
do we take that risk of a second whammy, a second hit?
All right, Dr. Mitra, we're going to have to leave it there. What you're really saying in a nutshell is GST was anyway going to be a whammy. Demonetization will be a second one. You can't have two together. Therefore, since you've done demonetization, delay GST until we're ready for it. Let's leave it there. My thanks to you for speaking to us, and my thanks in particular for the very graphic details you've given about what you personally think would be the cost of demonetization on the economy as a whole and on Bengal in particular, and why you believe if all the money that's demonetization comes back, this will have been a failure. And there we leave this particular episode. If you have been watching, many thanks indeed. Bye. Good night.